Hello and welcome back to the Opposites Abroad podcast, the podcast about all things travel. Charlie Bosco here in BC, at Traveller Tattooed on Instagram. TT is in Denver, Colorado, and today we are talking about one of the greatest cities on earth, one of the most iconic places on earth. So good they named it twice, New York, New York. And my big confession here is that I have never been to New York, and that feels like the craziest omission from the resume of someone who's travelled a lot. I'm hoping work is going to take me there next year. I'm quite optimistic that a year from now I will have been. But I'm pretty sure I transited in JFK, which doesn't count at all. But I've never been to New York. It's strange though. I feel like I have been there. You know that feeling where
of London.
Be somewhere like that where when I eventually end up going there, I will know so much of it. It kind of feels like you've already been.
Yeah, and I'm definitely not an expert in New York. I live in Denver, so for me, it's way easier for me to get to like LA. Is a way easier flight than getting to New York, and New York is just so unbelievably massive that it's difficult to navigate. You go to one place, you kind of want to stay in that area and not venture all around. It's not somewhere where you're gonna be like, we're staying in this area, but let's go have dinner in this other area, and it takes you an hour and a half to get there, either trying to take the subway or driving, which you don't really want to do there. So it just gets massive. So for this trip, I really focused on Queens, and kind of went out a little bit for one thing, but pretty much just stayed in Queens, which was an interesting area.
But you know New York reasonably well, hey? Your son goes to college there, and you've spent a fair bit of time there.
So my son's in upstate New York, and a lot of Americans, they think of New York as just New York City, but there's New York City, and then there's a big state of New York, and it gets confusing, I think, for people that aren't from the U.S. that the city and state have basically the same name, New York State and New York City. But my son, when I go visit my son, I fly into Newark, which is actually in New Jersey, and then drive about an hour and a half upstate. So I don't even go through the city when I go see him. But New York has 3 gigantic airports. It's that big, and so you kind of fly into the airport about closer to where you're staying or where the airlines go, because some airlines like United generally goes to Newark mostly. Other ones may go to other airports, but it gets kind of difficult to navigate. And
I mean, when we went, you and I met up in LA, and LA felt like the biggest city I've ever been to. And I've been to Tokyo, which is officially the biggest city in the world. I've been to Chongqing, which is the biggest metropolitan area in the world, but LA felt like the biggest city because there are no tall buildings. It's just 25 million people that live in detached houses.
Well, LA, I mean, there is downtown LA with tall buildings, but it's kind of being revitalized now, but it's really not where people go.
Yeah, I remember going up to the Hollywood sign, and LA, the curvature of the earth was beginning to kick in, and LA just carried on into the distance. How big does New York feel? Because presumably it merges with New Jersey and Long Island. And
it does.
How big does it feel?
It feels really big if you're in Manhattan. I was in Queens, which does not have high buildings. It's a very, very big immigrant area. Massive population from the Dominican Republic in Queens. So parts of it actually felt more like you're in Central America than actually in New York City, because the buildings are old, they're low. It's like just not what you picture, what you think of as New York City, which is what people think of. They think of Wall Street, or they think of these gigantic towering Empire State Building, all that stuff. But that's more Manhattan. So you can if you go to different areas, they're very, very different. And that's why when you meet someone from New York, some people will say they're from New York City, but a lot of people, they're proud of what area they grew up in. They're from Brooklyn, or they're from wherever it is, and that's kind of where they're from. And a lot of people aren't like that. A lot of cities aren't like that. Like if I say I'm from Denver, I would never tell someone that's not from here like what neighborhood I'm from.
Yeah.
But New York is very, very neighborhood centric. I don't know, is London that way, or is it just I'm from London?
Not many people are from London, it seems. Most people live there for a while, then go somewhere else as they get old and have kids. But no, people would just say I'm from London. Now, when you live in London, it's a big deal which part you live in, because certain boroughs of London are known as up and coming, which means they're a total dump. But house prices are starting to rise. But yeah, up and coming is the terminology people use. But yeah, the area of London you live in is kind of a status symbol for sure.
Yeah,
but it's not an identity. You wouldn't say I'm from Shoreditch, or I'm from Croydon, or I'm from Notting Hill. No, you say you're from London.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of all the London neighborhoods on the top of my head.
But you're going in October, you'll be able to refresh your memory.
I know, and one thing, and kind of on this trip, and I guess it's a good segue with me going to London too, is I like staying in a place that's where I'm going to do something in a big city, and then really exploring that section of the city. And for this trip, I was going to a Blackpink concert at Met Stadium, which is in Queens. So I flew into LaGuardia, which is the closest airport to there. You basically can stay right by there, and you can walk to Met Stadium. And then I just explored and did things in that area that I would never do. And I would actually like to go back to New York and go to some other areas and just get a hotel in some random part of New York City that I'm not familiar with, and then spend a few days just exploring that area, because there's different food, there's different immigrant groups, there's just different, almost like different cultures and different identities of them. And I think that's super, super fun.
So if someone was going to New York for the first time, like I might be next year, what would you say? Is it because if someone went to London for the first time, I would say to him, I know it's a cliche, but I don't care. You have to go to Big Ben, you have to go to Tower Bridge, you have to see St. Paul's, you have to see Buckingham Palace, because those are iconic sites, you have to see them, and it doesn't really matter that they're a cliche. Is New York like that, where you would recommend seeing the cliched stuff, or is that actually not really the best use of a one-off trip?
I think for a one-off trip, if you've never been to New York, yeah, you're going to want to see the Statue of Liberty. You're going to go see where the Twin Towers were. You're going to maybe go, want to walk through Central Park. Maybe go to the Guggenheim. I love the Natural History Museum. There is unbelievable, but that's not everybody's thing. People like to walk through Wall Street and see the big bull statue, Empire State Building. You can go see Trump Tower and give the finger to it when you walk by. There's a lot of iconic things. So if you've never been there, I would probably stay in Manhattan, where you can walk to Central Park. But one of the downsides to New York City is the Costa hotels are really, really, really expensive. It's an expensive city. Food is expensive, especially if you're like in Manhattan. But hotels can be extremely pricey. So it's not a great place just to go for a few days. Like, there's cheaper places to go that are probably more fun, or you can have more options for hotels. But it's just an expensive place. It really is.
Yeah, just thinking about that, I actually saw one of these YouTube videos where a real estate agent shows you around an apartment, and he was showing people around an apartment in New York, and he was going, "Here's the big thing." It was $950,000 this apartment, and he goes, "You've got your own washing machine." He was saying to the camera, it's a rare thing when you find an apartment in New York for less than $1 million, and you don't need to use a laundromat. You got your own washing machine right here. And I was thinking, I have to pay more than $1 million to have a washing machine. I mean, It just seems insane. Anyway.
Yeah, LA's that way too.
I'm a country boy.
Yeah, LA's that way too. I mean, you can't touch anything in LA for under $1 million.
But how do people live? Well, anyway.
I don't know. I think a lot of it is trust funders that that people moving into those places are trust funders. They're renting for a really high rate, and they're basically like apartment poor or house poor because all their money's going to that. And then people who are there for generations, they've inherited homes and they live in their grandparents' house that they've inherited. But it's expensive, and it's not a cheap weekend, but it's just getting harder and harder to find cheap weekends. I mean, Vegas used to be a bargain. Now it's expensive. LA's expensive. Boston's expensive. It just gets tough. But I do think that New York is somewhere that everyone should go. I mean, I had a buddy go with me on this trip. He'd never been to New York. I went a day out earlier before he did. He went out with me, went to the concert with me, and then I left, and then he spent the next day and went into Manhattan to see all the big sites that he'd never seen, that I'd already done. I was more excited to see some of the stuff in Queens because it's just, I like places that aren't quite as touristy. But for him, he wanted to see the big stuff. So and I get that.
That's one of the great pleasures of really, really big cities, though, is that you find that there are different neighborhoods that are each interesting on their own.
Yes.
Which neighborhoods in New York that you've been to would you recommend?
I've really haven't been that much. I've been to Manhattan probably 3 or 4 times. That's where most tourists go. And then this was the first time I've kind of stayed in an outlying area. And if it wasn't for the concert, I mean, I went specifically for the concert. I don't know that I would have thought I'm going to go to explore a different part of New York City. Like, it just isn't. It wasn't really something on my radar. But after this trip, now I kind of want to go some other parts.
Where do you want to go? Where are we going to meet up next year?
If you'd never been to New York, you probably would want to go to Manhattan. I mean, Times Square. There's just all that stuff. There's the New York's known for some food. They're known for New York style pizza, which I had one night. I feel like that's a must do when you're there. New York steakhouses. What we think of as traditional American steakhouses started in New York. So you think of like Vegas steakhouses. All that stuff started in New York. So the really old steakhouses are a thing there. Jewish delis, pastrami sandwiches and stuff are huge there. Those are probably, I'm sure if you're from New York, I'm forgetting stuff, but I would say those are probably the 3 foods you really want to do when you're there is New York steakhouse, New York style pizza, and a Jewish deli.
What is New York style pizza?
It's really thin pizza. You see it's a big kind of greasy pieces, and they'll a lot of times they'll fold it and eat it like that. But it's not like a deep dish like a Chicago style. It's usually very, very thin. It's awesome. I mean, chewy crust. I went one night and had it. It's awesome.
That sounds like a real pizza though, because when you go for pizza in Italy, it's thin.
Yes.
Like, you can't pick up a slice of pizza in Italy because the tip of it just flops down and starts falling off.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be floppy and it's supposed to be really easy to eat.
Are you talking about pizza?
You've just got to squidge in a softie. What about New York steakhouse? What makes them special? Or is it just tradition that you go for steak in New York?
It's tradition. I mean, it's where the I always like where things originated. So that traditional where you think of like dark red leather booths, waiters in tuxedos, dark lit, probably playing, old jazz music. I mean, that's a very New York thing. And it kind of started there. And I think when you go to a steakhouse, really I think the quintessential thing to get is like a wedge salad, shrimp cocktail, ribeye, some sort of potato, and then if you're really left over, you get one of the really old school desserts like a bananas Foster or cherries Jubilee or something like that.
Okay, and food in New York. People talk about the food in New York. Is it one of those places where you can just literally get anything?
Yeah,
you can name a food.
You can get anything. And where I was staying is a massive Dominican Republic population, so there's tons of those restaurants for the local population, and you go into a little market to get beer, and they had Dominican beer. Because that's where the population is, and I'm sure. And if you go to Chinatown, which is I've been to in New York City, which is amazing and gigantic, then it's obviously it's Chinese food, and you go to the market, and it's going to be Chinese beer, and you can really get a different flavor of different cultures just based on where these groups live, and I think that's really fun, and I like trying that stuff. I went one night before the concert. We went and we got Dominican beers, and I drank one in the room before the concert, and it's like you can't get. I don't even know in Denver where you can even find beer from the Dominican Republic. And the last time I've had it was when I was in the Dominican Republic. So I was excited. I was excited to see it. I think it's cool. The people forget what a melting pot America is, and we are a country of immigrants, and I think that stuff should be celebrated more. So it was fun.
Yeah, I'm listening to a really good podcast series right now. Other podcasts are available other than the Opposites Abroad, called 912, about the reaction to 9/11.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's super interesting about how that affected immigrant families. So there's a little recommendation, 912. So when people go to New York for the first time, what is it like? What am I going to notice? What am I going to feel? What's it like?
I would say it's just like any big city. My buddy, actually, I talked to him afterwards, and I said, what did you think? And I actually asked him if he wanted to be on this so we could talk about what it was like from never being to New York and seeing it for the first time. I thought it'd be interesting, but he said he's too shy. But he said to be honest, he goes, downtown New York's a lot crappier than I expected.
Really?
But
are we talking Manhattan here?
Manhattan, but it's because big cities are like that. Big cities have homeless people, and they have trash, and they have graffiti, and not everyone. I mean, Tokyo doesn't have a lot of that stuff, but it's just it just kind of is what it is. And I don't think you'd be shocked at like, oh my God, this place is a dump, but it's definitely not going to seem as fancy as it might seem in movies. I don't think, being from Denver, New Yorkers in general don't have the greatest reputation for being like the friendliest, nicest, warmest people in the world. They tend to be very like hectic, and they're in a rush, and they're not going to say hi to you when they walk down the street. And but knowing that, it's okay. And when I've been in New York and I've asked for someone for help, or I've got lost or something, people have always been really nice, but it's definitely not like being in Texas or
Okay.
even as laid back as LA. It's a little bit more high strung, I would say. If you think of people that that are from New York in movies and stuff, or celebrities, I mean, they're just kind of that way. New York, they talk really loud, they can be brash, and I don't think they're bad people or they're not nice people. It's just a different personality type, I think.
Well, all stereotypes have an element of truth, so it sounds like to some extent they live up to it. Are you kind of daily interactions with people pretty friendly?
Yeah, I mean, where I was on this trip, everyone spoke Spanish.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it was nice because I could practice my Spanish in the when I was buying a beer or something. But I thought that was fun. But I've always had good experiences. I did get one time I got really, really lost in Chinatown. This is before I had maps on my phone and I could not find my way out, and I was stopping trying to talk to people, and nobody spoke English. It was like being in China. And then finally I found a lady that I asked, and she was like, if you walk with me while I do some like deliveries, because she was like hand delivering stuff, I'll get you to where you need to go, I'll get you a train station. So I followed her around for a little bit, and then she got me a train station. But I had one really good experience on that same trip. And again, this is before I had map on my phone. I probably had a BlackBerry or something back then. And I was on a train. I got on the wrong train or the wrong subway train, and I was like completely lost. And there was a pregnant lady with a little baby next to me on the train, and I asked her like, "Hey, I'm lost. Like, where do I go? How do I go to where I'm trying to go?" And she actually got off the train with me with her baby, this pregnant lady, got on a different train and rode with me to where I was supposed to go.
No.
And then got back on the train and rode back where she was going. And I was like, I thought it was just so unbelievably nice. And it was something that you wouldn't expect. I mean, the stereotypical people think of New York as like the cabs are honk at you, and people are like push you out of the way when they're walking down the street, and that's kind of the stereotypical New Yorker thing. But both those people were very, very nice to me.
Oh, that's fantastic to hear, because they do get a hard time. But the other, as well as the people being pretty brusque, the one thing you hear about New York is the city that never sleeps. Does it have that high energy, or is that just a stereotype, and once you're there it just feels like any big city? I mean, all big cities have an energy.
I don't know. I don't feel like it feels like super Partyville. I mean, there's Broadway, which is cool. That's another thing I would do, is go see a Broadway show if someone's never done that. I actually would have liked to have gone to see like because there's a Harry Potter one. There's a Harry Potter show, but I decided to go to a Yankees game instead the first night. But I don't know. It doesn't seem like Partyland, and I'm sure there's some of that stuff, but it mostly seems like people just trying to work and survive like everybody else. But
yeah, I always imagine New York as being quite a ruthless place.
Yeah, I think it probably is, but yeah, I really don't know.
Yeah. Okay. What was the Yankees game like?
Yankees game was so I actually screwed up because I went out Friday. Saturday night I was going to the concert at Mets Stadium, which is called Shea Stadium. And so I thought, well, I'm right there, so I'll go to a Mets game on Friday night, and then the Saturday night I'll go to the concert at the stadium. And the concert was sold out the first night, and then they actually added a second night, and it was sold out for that too. But I had tickets, and so I buy a ticket to the Mets game, and then right before, I realized that I had bought for the wrong week.
It's such a sinking feeling.
Oh, and actually, I would be at the Mets game right this second because I booked it for today. And I put on SeatGeek, and my ticket sold, and I only lost a few dollars, which is fine. But
I remember texting you, and you said you weren't sure if you managed to sell it.
I managed to sell it.
Okay, good.
And it wasn't too expensive. But so then I was actually complaining to a buddy who's from upstate New York, and I was like, I can't believe I bought this ticket of the wrong thing. And then of course Mets weren't playing the night before the concert because they're setting up the concert, which was totally logical.
Yeah.
And my buddy's like, why don't you go to a Yankees game? And I go, that is a really good idea. So I went to the Yankees game, which is a lot more expensive than the Mets game. And I didn't realize when I got there it was bobblehead night, and the Yankees play in Brooklyn, so it's pretty far from Queens.
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah, okay.
But I got there, and I'm not a huge baseball fan. Like, I have no idea what's going on during the games, but I just like I like seeing the parks. I like seeing people having fun. It's fun to have like a beer and have food and stuff, and but it was like free bobblehead night for like the first 19,000 people, which is like half the stadium. And when I got there, it was like a million people trying to get like in line. And someone in line was like, "This is the way bobblehead night always is. If they give out free bobbleheads, it's quite crazy." But I got
wouldn't you rather just go on a quiet night and buy a hat? It's such a weird thing to me.
I know, but if you're a huge fan, I mean, people put them on their desk or they collect them. And it was actually really nice. I mean, it came in like a huge box. I mean, and it wasn't like some crappy little bobblehead in like a plastic bag. Like, it was a really nice something you'd buy at like a collector thing. So waited in line, got in there, got my bobblehead, and then I was actually pretty disappointed in the stadium because you think of as Yankees as like the most successful baseball team in the country. It's probably valued the highest as an actual team.
Yeah,
And then
for sure.
I went there and I just saw the stadium was kind of crappy. It was built I think in like 2009. It's just a concrete ugly monstrosity. It doesn't have the charm of like if you see where the Red Sox that was made in like the early 1900s, and it's a really cool historic stadium. The Yankee Stadium was just kind of meh. And I actually thought when I went the next night to the Mets Stadium for the concert that stadium was actually a little bit nicer. So
Okay.
I was kind of surprised walking around, and then it's just expensive. I got a bucket of chicken fingers and fries, and it was a lot of food, but it was $30 for that.
Oh.
And then beers are $20, like a White Claw or something, or White Claw type drink is $20. So it's and I'm not cheap at those places. If I want a beer, I'll buy a beer, but you don't like to feel like you're getting completely fleeced.
No, you're getting drilled at $20.
Yeah, and that's why I like minor league games because they're more reasonable. And there's some, I think the like Brave Stadium has a thing where like there's like a city law or state law that they can't charge more for stuff inside than outside. So
Right.
so food's like reasonable, but it's like they have you held hostage and you want a beer, and it's just, I just think that's ridiculous. So that was super expensive. So I think it was one of those things that if you're really into sports, it's probably a must. If you're kind of into sports, I think seeing a Yankees game in stadiums is a really cool thing to do. I'm not like I think there's like two types of baseball fans. There's like Yankee fans and everybody else, and so I'm not like a huge Yankees fan. But it was cool, and I actually would like to go back sometime and do a similar trip, but actually go to a Mets game and see what that's like. I think would be really fun, because it's interesting, being in Denver where there's one baseball team and there's one football team and there's one basketball team. Being in a city that's so huge, they have multiple professional sport teams, is just very strange to me.
Yeah. Yeah. What else would you recommend then? When we meet up in New York next year, what are you going to recommend to me?
It depends on where we're staying, and if you've never been there, we'd probably do the main touristy stuff. I'd like to do some of the other stuff. On this trip I went, so New York is so big, there's like every area has their own zoo. Like there's like the Brooklyn Zoo, there's the main zoo, there's a Queens Zoo. So this time I went to the Queens Zoo, and it was just a small zoo. It's like $10 to get in. I went to the Louis Armstrong Museum. Louis Armstrong, people aren't familiar, he's maybe the biggest jazz musician of all time, but they've got a museum there in his original house, which is unchanged from when he lived there. He died in like 1972. So that was really neat. So some of those offbeat things that you normally wouldn't do, where you're staying in a hotel, you look at a map, and I was like, okay, I've got a morning with nothing going on. There's a Louis Armstrong Museum, I'm going to go to that. That kind of stuff to me is really fun. Would you want to do that stuff? Never being in New York, probably not. But when I go back, that's the kind of stuff that I would like to do, because I've already kind of seen the big things, and I don't like being around a bunch of tourists. Like I don't like going someplace where there's just throngs of people. Grand Central Station. I mean, there's so many things there to see. The Guggenheim is a really cool building, but I hate modern art. And you go in there, it's just like stupid, horrible art, like bags of trash on the floor, and just
art is a very generous term.
Yeah, I just think it's dumb, and I think you get all these people there that pretend like they understand it because it makes them feel superior to other people, but in the reality, I think deep down in their heart, they know it's all just a bunch of crap.
Such a good summary. Like the artist, I use the phrase incredibly lightly. Tracy Emin in the UK,
Yeah.
who made some modern art that was the unmade bed, and it was pretty much what it sounds like. And a cleaner in the museum in London, saw it and made the bed, but fortunately, the artist was able to successfully recreate her masterpiece by unmaking it. It's such nonsense.
Yeah, I like when you go to a modern art museum, if there's like a fire extinguisher or someone left the vacuum out, you go up and you take your picture with it like it's the most amazing piece of art ever.
That's such a good idea. I mean, it's highly unlikely I will ever find myself in a modern art museum, but if I do, that's 100% what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
If I go next year, though, we're going to be in Brooklyn.
Okay.
So, pretty psyched to check that out. Is Brooklyn cool?
I was only really there for the Yankee game, so right. I don't know. Probably. I think everywhere's probably pretty cool and pretty interesting, and there's a lot of history in like Harlem and places like that. You and I tend to like places that are a little bit grittier. So getting away from Manhattan, I mean, because you're not going to want to go shop in the crazy stores in Manhattan and things like that. Central Park is massive, like absolutely unbelievably huge to walk through. So I think that's kind of a must to go stroll through that. The other thing with New York too is it can be really hot in the summer, and then the winters are horrible. It's like you go, if you're in like Manhattan with all the big high rises, the sun doesn't get to the street, so it's just you're in perpetual darkness. It's windy, winds zipping through those little streets and alleys and stuff, and it's brutally cold in like January. So when you go there, you really want to look at the weather and dress accordingly and appropriately. The first time I ever went to New York City was in January, and I was not dressed appropriately. I wore like jeans with Converse and like a hoodie, and I just was frozen solid the whole time.
They get real snow, hey? It properly snows.
Yes, I think so. When I was there, it wasn't really snowy, and I think I'm sure they do a really good job of cleaning off the roads and stuff, but it was just unbelievably cold.
Okay.
Yeah, and my son's even said that in upstate New York. And he's from Denver. When we get big snowstorms and stuff, that he was amazed how miserably cold the winters are there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's damp cold as well, right? 'Cause it's on the
Damp,
coast.
cold, and super windy.
Okay,
yeah.
We could probably give that a miss then. But it is super fun to hear about because, as I say, I kind of, as someone who likes to travel and has traveled a little bit, it's crazy to think I've never been to New York, but life just takes you to some places and it doesn't take you to others.
Yeah, it does, and I look for excuses to go, and if there's a concert or a sporting event or something, I mean, it's like I'm going to London in October because the Broncos are going to be playing there. I went to this because this concert was there with a band that their whole tour was like 4 places in North America. So it's like you take these opportunities and then you explore the area a little bit and you see a place you never would go to, or you would unlikely go to.
I'm unfamiliar with Blackpink, so I can't believe they're selling out stadiums, but
yeah,
Taylor Swift's selling out stadiums, so anything's possible.
Taylor Swift's selling out, but Blackpink is K-pop from Korea. Some critics say they're the best girl group of all time. They're so massive individually now. I think Rosé's Apartment song, which I'm sure you've heard with Bruno Mars, has like 2.5 billion views. It's like 2.5 billion views on YouTube, and she's kind of gone like in a rock direction. But they're so huge individually. One of them was in the last season of White Lotus, which is one of the biggest shows of last year.
I just finished the last season of White Lotus.
Oh, you did? So yeah, one of them. It
was good.
The girl that was at the front desk is that was dating the security guard guy.
Security guard, yeah.
She's in Blackpink, so they've branched out, and I just think this is probably. I'd be surprised if this isn't their last tour because they're just so massive individually, and they're probably under contract to do this tour, but I would imagine it's going to slow down. And the concert was awesome because it was mostly Asians at the concert, so it's kind of like being in Japan where they don't stand up. They're not
dancing. They just sit there and listen.
They sit there and listen, and they're into it, and they're dressed up for it, and they're super excited, but they're not like being obnoxious, and they're not screaming the lyrics out loud and everything. And it was very nice and respectful concert after some other ones I've been at. So So I thoroughly enjoy that, because nothing's worse than you're at a concert and there's some idiot like standing in front of you dancing around, you can't see anything, and so yeah, it was really nice.
Oh, that's good. It's crazy though, because I remember when I was a teenager and I just couldn't believe that my parents were not intimately familiar with some pop star that I was, super into, and
Yeah.
apparently there's this band who are selling out stadiums in New York, and I was just thinking, I have no idea who Blackpink is.
Yeah.
So okay.
Yeah.
I'm getting really old.
No, it's fun. And yeah, and I try to branch out sometimes, but I like different cultures and learning about different stuff. So if there's some Asian band that's like this massive band, I'm at least going to try to listen to it a little bit and see what all the fuss is about.
I'm going to get on YouTube right now and find Blackpink. Take a look.
You should.
All right, well, that was super interesting, and I really hope that next year you can show me around in person.
That would be awesome. I would love that. So I'm off tomorrow to West Virginia for a week, so we can do one on that when I get back. And what do you have going on?
We are going on a canoe trip over the weekend, camping out of the canoe, like keep carrying all our stuff in the canoe and camping.
Oh, cool.
And then I am gonna see if I need back surgery next week. So lots going on.
Well, I hope you don't. That's gonna be terrible.
Honestly, I'd rather just get it done.
Yeah, I'll wheel you around in a wheelchair in New York City.
Yeah, it's keyhole surgery, so I'm feeling like it can't be that intrusive, but
I don't know. And what does that mean? They drill a little hole in or something, relieve the pressure?
It means that they don't cut it open and kind of work with their own eyes. They put a big fat needle in, and then all the tools and the camera and everything go through the needle.
Yeah.
So it's kind of minute equipment that they use, rather than the doctor using the naked eye. They're actually looking on a screen because it's such a small incision. So I don't know. We'll find out.
Well, maybe we'll really be opposites abroad if I can walk and you're paralyzed.
That's a bit of a dark joke, but I like it. I mean, you've always been taller than me. You could end up being like 3 feet taller than me. Honestly, it's been a few weeks and I'm pretty sick of sitting down already.
I bet.
Pretty keen.
Pretty keen. Well, that's where you and I are similar, is we want to get up and wander around. So I would die if I couldn't go wander and walk. That would be awful. So I can understand.
Yeah, it's crazy. I feel like it's been the last, when it first happened for a few weeks, I could do push-ups without pain. So I was just doing push-ups, and okay, it's not the most effective workout, but at least you feel like you're moving, and you can get tired arms, and you kind of feel like you've earned your dinner.
Yeah.
And then when I went to the hospital last week, the surgeon just said, "No, just don't do anything. Just don't. You can go for walks. That's it." Yeah. But even walking is pretty slow, so it's pretty crazy not being able to move. I feel like I'm developing man boobs and a big belly, but I'm pretty sure it's all in my head. I'm pretty sure in 5 days you don't just, get completely out of shape. But that's how it feels.
Yeah. It's funny how that works. Then you do a couple of push-ups and you kind of feel like you're back to normal.
Yeah, exactly. But we'll see what they say next week. So I don't know how we ended up talking about my back issues, but man, yeah, it's hard to think about anything else. It's probably appropriate that we talk about it on the podcast. But yeah, hopefully this time next year we're kind of strolling around New York. I might even see if I can run through Central Park. Let's see.
Well, we can have an update on your health in the next podcast, and hopefully everything's okay.
Yeah, I hope so. But I mean, I can shuffle around. But I would, ideally, the rest of my life, I'll be able to do a little bit more than shuffling. I've got stuff I want to do that involves, needing your legs. So
yeah.
Let's find out. We'll find out next week. But yeah, hey, have a good time in West Virginia.
Okay. Yeah. Everyone, stay tuned.